Back when I was a kid, maybe 5 or 6, I remember playing with my younger brother at our grandparents' house. We'd go over there almost every weekend, and this particular Saturday the sky was dark and it had been raining off and on. Strangely, I remember having this vague premonition of the storm getting really bad, and even asked my parents about it, but apparently it was supposed to clear up instead. My brother and I didn't let the weather stop us. We were deep into a game of hide and seek, darting through the old house with its creaky floorboards and musty smell. Our grandparents' place was out in the sticks, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow the house whole. It had this timeless feel, peeling paint, a sagging porch, and rooms full of shadows that always made me a little uneasy. That day, though, the air felt heavier, like the storm was pressing down on us. I decided to hide in the attic, a spot we weren't supposed to go. The narrow stairs groaned under my weight, and up there, it was a maze of dusty boxes and forgotten furniture, lit only by a small, grimy window. As I crouched behind an old trunk, the wind outside started howling and rattling the glass. The rain came down harder, drumming on the roof like it was trying to get in. I don't know why, but my chest tightened. That premonition hit me again. Something bad was coming. I tried to brush it off, but my hands were trembling. I couldn't stay up there. I crept back downstairs to the living room, where my parents were glued to the TV. My brother was sprawled on the rug, coloring, and the weather guy on the screen was all smiles, saying the storm was moving out with clear skies ahead. My parents nodded, reassured, but I wasn't buying it. That feeling wouldn't leave me. Then, out of nowhere, the power cut out. The TV went black, and the house plunged into darkness. My brother yelped, and I grabbed his hand, pulling him close. Lightning flashed outside, throwing jagged shadows across the walls. My parents scrambled for candles, their voices calm but edged with tension. They lit a few, and the flickering flames made everything look wrong, like the room was alive and shifting. That's when we heard it, a loud crash from the back of the house. It sounded like the back door had been kicked in. My dad grabbed a flashlight, his face tight. Probably just a branch, he muttered, but he didn't sound convinced. He headed toward the noise, the beam of light cutting through the dark hallway. My mom stayed with us, clutching a candle, her eyes darting to the windows. Minutes dragged on, Dad didn't come back. Mom called his name, her voice shaking. There was no answer. The storm roared outside, wind screaming through the trees. Then we heard footsteps, heavy and slow, coming from the hallway. They didn't sound like Dad's, because his steps were quick and light. These were deliberate, like someone taking their time. "Hide," Mom whispered, shoving us toward the couch. We crawled underneath, squeezing into the tight space, dust clogging my nose. My brother was shaking, and I clamped a hand over his mouth to keep him quiet. The footsteps got closer, stopping right in front of us. Through the gap under the couch, I saw muddy boots, water dripping off them onto the floor. A man's voice growled, low and rough, "I know you're here. Come out, or I'll find you myself." Mom screamed as he grabbed her ankle, yanking her out. I heard her thrashing, a thud, and then silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it had burst. The man started moving around the room, muttering, opening drawers and tossing stuff aside. I couldn't see him, just those boots pacing back and forth. Suddenly the light snapped back on, blindingly bright. The man swore and bolted, his steps fading toward the back of the house. Dad stumbled into the room, a bruise on his forehead, his flashlight dangling limp in his hand. He'd been jumped out back and knocked out cold for a few minutes. Mom was on the floor, bruised a little bit, but okay. The cops showed up fast, even with the storm still raging. The back door was busted open, muddy prints tracked through the house. They said it was probably some drifter or thief, using the storm as cover to break in. Mom turned out to be okay, and Dad as well. They never caught the guy though. No leads, and no trace beyond those prints. But here's what keeps me up at night, even now, years later. When I was hiding in the attic, I looked out that little window. Through the rain, I saw something, a figure standing at the edge of the woods, just watching the house. I thought it was my imagination, a trick of the storm, but after everything, I know it was him. That premonition I had, it wasn't just about the storm getting bad, it was about him. I'd somehow felt him coming, and seen him in my mind before he even stepped foot inside. I never told my parents about that figure, how could I? But ever since, I've trusted that gut feeling, no matter how small or strange it seems. Because back then, it was the only warning I got before that nightmare walked right into our lives. Let me start by saying that I'm not a super religious person, nor am I superstitious or believe in zodiac signs or anything like that. But still, I don't really have an explanation for what I'm about to share. This happened back in college when I was starting to date more frequently. I was a junior at the time, finally setting into campus life after a couple of awkward years. I'd started putting myself out there, meeting new people and going on dates. Nothing serious, just testing the water. That's how I ended up meeting Jake. He was a grad student, a friend of a friend, with a quiet confidence that drew me in. We texted for a week or so before he asked me out to this little dive bar near campus. It wasn't fancy, but it had character, sticky floors, neon signs, and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since the 90s. The night started out fine. Jake was easy to talk to, asking about my classes and cracking dry jokes that made me laugh. He had this habit of tilting his head when he listened, like he was really taking in every word. It was charming, disarming even. We ordered a couple of beers, and I remember thinking how normal it all felt. Almost too normal, like a scene from a movie. Then about 20 minutes in, something shifted. It was subtle at first, like a faint itch I couldn't scratch. I brushed it off, figuring it was just the bar's dim lighting or the hum of the crowd making me restless. Jake kept talking, telling me about his research project, something about urban planning, but I found myself zoning out. My chest felt tight, and this weird, heavy feeling settled over me, like I'd swallowed a stone. "You okay?" he asked, noticing my silence. His voice was calm, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something I couldn't place. "Yeah, just tired," I lied, forcing a smile. "Long day." He nodded, but the unease wouldn't let go. It grew stronger and sharper until it was practically screaming at me. I looked around the bar, half expecting to see something out of place, like a shadowy figure or a creepy stranger staring, but everything seemed fine. The bartender was wiping down the counter, a group of guys laughed by the pool table, and the jukebox churned out another old song. So why did I feel like I was in danger? I shifted in my seat, trying to shake it off, but then I noticed something. Jake's phone was face up on the table, and it buzzed with a text. The screen lit up just long enough for me to catch a glimpse. "Don't be late." There was no name and no other context. It could have been anything, a reminder from a friend, a work thing, but paired with the dread pulling in my gut, it felt ominous. "I'll be right back," I said, grabbing my bag and heading for the bathroom. I needed a minute to breathe and figure out why I was freaking out over nothing. In the grimy little stall, I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. "Get it together," I told myself. "He's nice, and you're fine." But no matter how much I tried to convince myself, I knew I wasn't fine. The second I stepped back into the bar, that feeling hit me like a freight train. My skin prickled and my legs felt shaky, like they were begging me to run. Jake was still at the table sipping his beer, but now he was watching the door, like he was waiting for someone. That's when I decided I couldn't stay. "Hey, I'm so sorry," I said, sliding back into my seat but not sitting down. "I just remembered I've got an early class tomorrow. I should probably head out." His face didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Already? It's not even 9. "Yeah, I know. I'm just not feeling great. Rain check?" I was already backing toward the exit, my heart pounding in my ears. "Let me walk you out," he offered, standing up. "No, really, it's okay. I'm just around the corner." I lied again, waving him off. He didn't push it, but the way he watched me leave, hands in his pockets, head tilted, sent a chill down my spine. I didn't stop moving until I was 2 blocks away, ducking into a convenience store to catch my breath. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "Hope you feel better. Let me know you got home safe." It was polite and normal, but it didn't ease the knot in my stomach. I ignored it and called a friend to pick me up instead. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt ridiculous, ditching a date over a hunch, but I couldn't shake the memory of that look on his face. Then a week later, I got my answer. I was scrolling through my phone between classes when a news alert popped up. "Police investigate assault at local bar." My blood ran cold as I read the details. It happened that same night, at that same dive bar, just after I'd left. A guy had gotten into a fight near the pool table, and it escalated. Someone pulled a knife. A girl who'd been there on a date got caught in the chaos and ended up in the hospital. Witnesses said the guy who started it had been waiting for someone, pacing by the door right around the time I walked out. I don't know if Jake was involved, and I don't even know if that text meant anything. But I keep going back to that moment, his eyes on the door, and my gut screaming at me to leave. If I'd stayed even 10 minutes longer, I might have been there when it all went down. I might have been the girl in the hospital, or worse. I've never told anyone this, not even my friend who picked me up that night. I still don't believe in premonitions or anything like that, but I can't deny it. Something told me to get out of there, and it may have just saved my life. One evening after work, I randomly thought about buying some new clothes at our local mall. I can't even say why, as I didn't really enjoy shopping for clothes and didn't especially need new ones. I graduated from college a few months ago and had a good job, and was stocked up on both professional and casual attire. Still, I didn't have anything else to do that night, and for some reason, wandering around the mall seemed like it could be chill. I pulled into the parking lot, that odd feeling still tugging at me, like I was meant to be there, though I couldn't explain why. Shaking my head, I stepped inside. The mall hummed with Friday night energy, kids darting around, couples strolling hand in hand, and the faint scent of pretzels wafting through the air. I wandered through a few smaller stores, half-heartedly browsing, until I ended up in one of the bigger department stores. Before I knew it, I was surrounded by racks of dresses and lingerie in the women's section, completely lost. And that's when I saw her. She stood near a display, holding what looked like an E-cup bra, tilting her head as if debating whether to try it. She was tall, with long brown hair and a smile that lit up the room. I felt an instant pull toward her, my heart doing a little flip. Hi, I said, stepping closer and hoping I didn't sound as awkward as I felt. I think I'm lost. Any chance you know where the men's section is? She looked up, her green eyes meeting mine, and laughed, a bright musical sound. You're not the first to get stuck in this labyrinth. I'm Lauren. Matt, I said, grinning back. Nice to meet you, Lauren. We started chatting, and it was effortless. Lauren was a graphic designer, sharp and funny, and I found myself telling her about my job and my aimless night. We joked about the store's confusing layout, our voices blending with the background chatter. I barely noticed time passing until I took a step back and bumped into a mannequin. I wobbled, and in my panic to grab it, I knocked over a scarf display instead. Scarves in every color tumbled to the floor, and I winced. Oh no, I'm so sorry, I said, dropping to my knees to pick them up. Lauren knelt beside me, laughing softly. Don't worry about it. It happens to the best of us. Our hands brushed as we gathered the scarves, a tiny spark igniting each time. When we stood, the display neat again, Lauren's eyes twinkled. You know, I think you owe me a coffee for the cleanup crew duty. I chuckled, relief flooding over me. Deal. There's a cafe just outside. Want to head there now? Absolutely, she said, her smile widening. We grabbed our drinks and settled into a quiet corner, talking for hours about everything and nothing. As the night ended, I couldn't shake the sense that my random urge to shop had been fate pushing me toward Lauren. We left them all together, already planning to meet again. Years later, Lauren and I are married, our life full of joy and little inside jokes. We still laugh about that night, how a toppled scarf display and a chance meeting in the women's section brought us together. I never figured out why I felt compelled to go to the mall that evening, but I'm forever thankful I did. Sometimes, the strangest feelings lead you right where you're meant to be.